Hello and welcome to the Monday, January 6th, 2019 edition of Tesla Daily, unofficial Tesla podcast. My name is Rob Maurer, quite a few different topics to go through today, so we'll jump right into it. Tesla stock with a new all-time high close today at $451.54, up 1.93%. That compared to the NASDAQ up 0.56%. So not a new all-time high for Tesla on the day, that was $454 on Friday, but a new all-time high close, and closed just a penny off the high of the day, which usually bodes well going into the following day. While the macro environment was up for the day, volatility should be expected. I'm sure most people have heard this by now, but late last week, there was a drone strike from the US, which killed an Iranian general, and that could lead to some escalating tensions, and again, perhaps some more volatility. We'll try to keep an eye on that throughout the week and likely beyond. All right, so the biggest news for Tesla today, as well as the reason for the podcast coming out a little bit later than normal today, is the Made in China Model 3 delivery event to non-employee customers. So, a little bit ahead of time in China, they are on January 7th, and that is 1 year from the groundbreaking ceremony for Gigafactory Shanghai, a perfect time for the first deliveries to non-employees. Tesla also took advantage of this to announce the beginning of the Made in China Model Y program. I had seen earlier in the day a couple of media outlets actually report this as the beginning of production for Model Y. That's obviously not the case. In terms of what it actually means, I was hoping we'd get a little bit more detail from the actual event today, which we'll talk about in a second. But unfortunately, we didn't get a whole lot more there. I would imagine it means really they're starting to begin the process of creating the space for Model Y or starting to bring in some of that production equipment that will eventually be used for Model Y. I think the two main takeaways from that would be if Tesla is starting to build out that Model Y program, they probably feel like they're already in a really good spot in Fremont to where they're ready to replicate it. And then the second takeaway would be that it's extremely likely that there will be Model Y production coming out of Gigafactory Shanghai this year. I mean, we went from groundbreaking to Model 3 deliveries in under a year, so even though the circumstances are a little bit different for Model Y, given that it's not actually in production yet in the US, I would still expect them to be able to overachieve that timeline, given that they're not actually constructing an entirely new factory, just adding on. In terms of the rest of the event, Elon was in attendance. He was introduced by a couple Shanghai government officials who were very complimentary of Tesla's progress, very thankful of the investment that Tesla has made in Shanghai, mentioning that the Gigafactory was built in record time even for Shanghai. They also spent a lot of time discussing the importance of the automotive industry to Shanghai, saying that it was, quote, Shanghai's key pillar industry, end quote, and really emphasized their focus on Shanghai being a hub for internationalization in the auto industry through a focus on building brands as well as breakthroughs in industry and technology that would allow Shanghai to become world-class. Tesla then, of course, a big part of those plans, with the Shanghai officials emphasizing that they hope to extend that collaboration further into the future with Tesla, and that they hope Tesla introduces many more models from Gigafactory Shanghai. At that point, Elon was then introduced on stage, and he was, of course, very effusive in his praise of both the Shanghai government and the Tesla team for their accomplishments around Gigafactory Shanghai. He then introduced the Model Y, reiterating what he said many times in the past, that Model Y should have more demand combined than S, X, and 3. Then also hinted at, quote, some advanced manufacturing technologies, end quote, that Tesla would reveal in the future, saying that it would be quite exciting to learn about those manufacturing technologies. I would imagine that relates to some of the things that we've heard hinted at in the past, in terms of reduced wiring or improved casting, things like that. That is particularly exciting for Model Y because naturally, it should already carry a higher margin than Model 3. So if on top of that there are even further manufacturing improvements, that's just going to drive Model Y margin that much higher. After these initial comments and the launch of the Model Y program, there was maybe a 30-minute break or so, and then Elon came back for the first deliveries of the Made in China Model 3s to non-employees. This part was interesting. Elon came on stage and started dancing. It seemed like he sort of had this planned out with them, and there was supposed to be some music, and the music wasn't happening, but Elon was dancing anyway. Couldn't really tell what was going on, but when the moderator joined Elon on stage, she said, quote, everyone can tell Elon's super, super happy today, end quote. And then Elon began his commentary talking about, obviously thanking everyone, but then mentioning that coming to work should be fun, and he was obviously very supportive of quote-unquote quirky stuff. So in a very good mood for good reason. After the thank yous and such, Elon did acknowledge that, quote, still obviously going to be challenges ahead. That's the way it goes, end quote. But adding, quote, If we can get this done, what else can we do? It's going to be a very exciting future." End quote. That's what I've been talking about the last couple of days. I think people are underappreciating where this goes from here. Tesla was able to go from nothing to something in less than a year. How much are they going to be able to accomplish in a year when they're not starting from nothing? And furthermore, how much are they going to be able to accomplish in 5 years? Because that is what really matters. Elon, after acknowledging the support of the early adopters and how that made, Tesla's presence in China possible today, said that they continue to intend on making significant investments in Gigafactory Shanghai. He said Model 3, Model Y, and future models as well. And then his tone kind of changed and he started to talk about how he has this idea and it's super cool and Tesla's going to try and do it. And they want to build a design center in China to build something for worldwide consumption. Paraphrasing here, but pretty close to a quote, he said they want to try to do something radical, kind of like a Cybertruck. They want to do something cool and different that the world hasn't seen before, that moves your heart, and that's what we're going to do. It was very clear that Elon is very passionate and excited about this idea. So those were probably the biggest pieces of news from the event overall. Next up today, I want to talk about some changes to state subsidies, specifically in New Jersey and Massachusetts. Starting with New Jersey, Electrek is reporting that a piece of legislation has passed committee voting, making it likely to become law within the week, which would create a state rebate of up to $5,000 for electric vehicles. That rebate would be accrued based on the range of the vehicle, $25 per mile of range, giving EVs with 200 miles of range or more that max credit. With Colorado's incentives stepping down from $5,000 to $4,000 to begin 2020, this would put New Jersey, I believe, as the most generous EV tax credit. They also already waived the 7% sales tax for EVs. So nice to see this from New Jersey if this does go through. They're also trying to incentivize more charging infrastructure as well. Oh, and I should also mention that the rebate would be capped to vehicles under $55,000. In terms of Massachusetts, they are re-implementing a $2,500 credit for EVs under $50,000 that they had previously had but expired on September 30th of 2019. And this one is now fully in effect for vehicles purchased or leased after January 1st, 2020. There's also a $1,500 credit available for plug-in hybrids with 25 miles of range or more. Next up today is another comment from Wedbush analyst Dan Ives. I feel like we've been hearing a lot from them recently, and they definitely seem to be becoming more bullish. Around the Q4 delivery and production numbers, Ives says, quote, "This was another major feather in the cap for Elon Musk & Co. by handily beating estimates in the quarter and speaking to the momentum Tesla is seeing specifically in Europe. If Tesla is able to sustain this level of profitability and demand for the company going forward, especially in Europe and China, then the stock and bull thesis will open up a new chapter of growth and multiple expansion, in our opinion." End quote. So yes, I would agree with that, and I think that we've already seen that. I mean, the stock has closed at all-time highs, like 3-4 weeks in a row now? And we're already seeing that multiple expansion happening. So I think we need to revisit that, but as we talked about back in June, Tesla was falling to a price-to-sales ratio around that time of about 1.4, and as we sit today, we're back above 3, so that expansion has happened. On the analyst front, it's going to be really interesting to see the changes to the FactSet consensus when we hopefully get another look at it prior to the Q4 earnings report, which again should be probably Wednesday, January 29th. But except for maybe 3 or 4 of them, they're all going to have to be increasing their estimates for Q4 and likely for 2020 and the out years as well. So that'll be interesting. We'll definitely try to get some visibility into that before earnings. Couple more quick things here today. The Tesla subreddit late last week crossed the 600,000 subscriber mark, putting it just outside of the top 500 subreddits. That means right now it's sitting just above such esteemed subreddits as Fan Theories and Learn Useless Talents, and it's closing in on the Dogs with Jobs subreddit, as well as the Florida Man subreddit. So clearly some intense competition there, but I expect Tesla to sneak into that top 500 here pretty soon. And then I also wanted to say just a quick congratulations to SpaceX for their first successful launch of the year. This was a Starlink mission, so SpaceX deployed 60 more Starlink satellites. This is the second production launch of those Starlink satellites, third overall, including one test launch. So again, congratulations to SpaceX. This is going to be an exciting year for the progress of Starlink. That is it for today, though. Don't forget to subscribe. Also follow me on Twitter at Tesla Podcast, and I'll see you tomorrow for the Tuesday, January 7th episode of Tesla Daily. Thank you.